Rook Exodus Issue 6. The final chapter in Volume 1 has arrived. I know you guys have been waiting for this one for a while, and trust me, I was too, but now that it's finally here, it's time to lock in and break it down. But before we proceed, there's some really sucky news I have to break to you guys. Rook Exodus Issue 7 isn't releasing until spring of next year, so it's gonna be a super long wait till we can continue our coverage. However, the end of this issue will have you super freaking hyped for it. With that being said though, let's jump in and break it down. So the last issue consisted of Ursal and his men burning down the forest Rook was in an effort to end his life. However, thanks to Pumbaa the boar and some rain, not only did Rook end up surviving, but he also formed a healthier relationship to his flock, igniting a new determination to save Exodus's wildlife from Ursal. This issue, on the other hand, picks up with some of Ursal's men trailing behind Ursal's arc. As rain poured in from Exodus's sky, one of them expressed that he missed back when the weather was scheduled because you could plan out your days, assuming that the weathermen were messing with them. According to his buddy though, Ursal killed all the weathermen, so this wasn't because of them. The real reason was because the world engine was falling apart. Moments later, they got a notification from their computer. Now that the wildlife grid was plugged into Ursal's system, they could see where all the other wardens were, making it easier to hunt them down and take their helmets. Despite believing Rook was dead though, their map indicated he was heading right towards them at an incredibly rapid pace, which didn't make any sense because it wasn't like he could fly. Nevertheless, that's when Rook and all the birds in his flock came speeding off of a cliff right above their vehicle. Upon sticking his landing, Rook began thinking of his father. Back on Earth, he died while saving their animals from a fire, and minus the dying part, he was determined to do the same thing, causing the adversaries to speed into a nearby boulder by commanding the crows to black out their windshield, which completely destroyed their vehicle in the process of doing so. After that, he stepped on the gas, heading towards the arc at full throttle, with the flock soaring right above him to survey the area. Now, this was actually really cool because he didn't even have to tell them to. They just did it by themselves. A clear sign their connection is way stronger now. So for the first time ever, he thanked them and then continued moving forward until running into more of Ursal's men. Unfortunately for them, it was game over when he whipped out the minigun, effortlessly destroying their combis with it, and then once he was close enough, clinging onto the arc by ejecting himself out of his vehicle. Meanwhile, inside of the arc, Ursal was holding Donica captive, expressing it was too late for them to stop him because thanks to the grid, the other wardens couldn't hide from him anymore. His soldiers were already in pursuit of them, and soon enough their helmets would be his, just like Donica's. After that, Donica asked who he was under the mask. She wasn't exactly sure, but was confident he came to Exodus for a second chance, only to turn into a genetically modified monster. It was understandable if he was blaming Betterworld for leaving them behind, but the innocent people he was slaughtering had nothing to do with them. Moments later, she brought up instinct influence, the thing that happens when wardens get too close to their animals, resulting in their instincts taking over. As stated by Ursal though, animal instinct may have affected him slightly, but he hadn't succumbed to it how her father did, revealing that he was actually still alive and that she lied to Rook and Carapace. But now that he had the grid, he could finally track him down because in addition to still being alive, he was also the only man who could fix the world engine. Now, the reason Donica lied was because as a result of what he'd become, she didn't associate with him or even consider him her father anymore. Nevertheless, as we move forward, Ursal reveals that his men were in the process of stripping Carapace of the very suit keeping him alive, and the only way he considered sparing him was if Donica pledged her loyalty to him. To her relief, she wouldn't have to though, because moments later they were greeted by Rook, jamming a hook right through Ursal's chest. Because of his giant stature, initially Ursal wasn't worried, stating he was too much for Rook to reel in. But clearly he spoke too soon, because right after that, Rook revealed that the other end of the hook wasn't attached to him and instead was attached to his vehicle, causing Ursal to fly out of the room to the top of the arc and giving Donica an opportunity to free herself. However, because Carapace was still in trouble, Rook was left to deal with Ursal alone while she focused on setting him free. Before their showdown began, Rook indicated that he knew Ursal all too well. He'd give him a chance to surrender peacefully, but he wouldn't even know how, so he whipped out his hand cannons and started blasting him. Completely unfazed and ready for war though, Ursal commanded his bears to send Rook flying, then trying to smash him with his axe saw, resulting in Rook diving out of the way just in time, only to be contacted by Donica moments later, asking how he was holding up. So Rook expressed he was keeping Ursal occupied. After that, she closed in on Carapace's location, discovering that two men were in the middle of operating on him, so without hesitation, she leapt into action action and neutralized them effortlessly. After that, she begged Rook to just stay alive. She'd be there immediately upon freeing Carapace, but honestly things weren't looking so good. Sooner or later, Ursal got so angry that he ripped Rook's helmet off and tossed it to the side, terminating his connection to the flock and telling him he was gonna die alone just like everyone else. When he built the rocket, he understood that the fight for survival was singular. He lived for himself and almost succeeded in escaping, but then the birds and dire wolf got into his head. He waited for swine and lost his chance to escape. Right after that, he snapped Rook's arm and batted him to the ground, further explaining that animals had no loyalty and that because he served the birds no purpose now, they left him to die the same way Better World did. But then suddenly, nothing less than a miracle happened. At first, it was one bird speeding towards Ursal with the intention of saving its leader. Of course, one bird was no cause for concern, so Ursal batted it away, not thinking much of its effort. However, moments later, one bird turned into five birds turned into 10, and soon enough, he was overwhelmed by every single member of the flock. Rook's connection to them was so strong now that even without his helmet, they still chose to fight for him and defend him. Despite being way stronger than them, Ursal stood no chance against that kind of volume, sending him plummeting off of the ark and finally terminating his connection to the bears, resulting in the bears heading back to the forest and the birds coming back to Rook's side. The first one that Ursal batted away lost an eye for Rook and was actually the leader of the flock, making Rook feel like he deserved to be called something, so he named it Poe. When it was all said and done, Ursal's soldiers fled along with his bears. However, in the midst of trying to figure out who Ursal was, Carapace stated his helmet couldn't be removed because it was fused to him. But Donica was able to get some information on his true identity by unlocking part of his file inside of the Ark. Apparently, he didn't come to Exodus with them. He actually worked for Better World and only arrived to Exodus 4 months ago. So if he ever woke up, they definitely had some questions for him. After that, while the three of them monitored the wildlife grid, Rook began thinking to himself. They predicted Better World would never come back for them, and they were right. Not only did they not come back, but they sent Ursal to recover their tech. Nevertheless, the helmets belonged to them now. Exodus was their home, and they couldn't desert it like they did to Earth. It was their duty to protect it together. Now they had a new mission, to watch over the people and animals who were left behind. They'd use the grid to locate the other helmets, making sure they were in good hands, and creating a new army of civil and environmental protection. Soon enough, Donica apologized for lying about her father, aka Bloodhound, but with what happened to his mind, he was as good as gone. Carapace hoped that that wasn't the case though, because he was the only one who knew how to fix the world engine. He was located north of the Rockies, so as stated by Rook, that's where they were headed, and they weren't stopping until they found him, giving us a crazy looking preview of what her father actually looked like. But with that being said, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Rook Exodus is so freaking amazing, and I am so hyped to cover the next volume.